Hey folks, and welcome to They Might Be Racing. Today we've got a 1996 Buick Riviera here that's due for an oil change. The oil fill is up here at the front of the engine block. Now keep in mind that this is a supercharged version, so if you have a non-supercharged version, it's going to have not quite as much stuff on the top. So go ahead and clean off the oil cap, which is kind of ooky, and you want to take a look down in the oil fill if possible. What you're looking for is how clean the top of the block is. That's pretty clean. I could still read numbers on it. If you see any whitish foam or anything in there, or if you smell gasoline coming out of it, those are indications there's something wrong with your car. So keep that in mind. Now we're going to set the oil cap back in place, but we're not going to tighten it. And the next thing we're going to do is go underneath and drain the oil. For my friends out there who are, car guys looking for good parts, this supercharged car, this engine has a very, very nice root style supercharger on it. So if you ever run across one in a junkyard or cheap on Craigslist, it's a great source for a supercharger. Okay, so next we're going to go underneath the car. Alright. Okay, now we're underneath the car. So the important things to know about here is the oil drain plug, 15mm wrench. Here is the oil filter. So first thing we got to do is drain the oil. You want to set your oil pan back a bit because oil will shoot that way. And let's go ahead and loosen this guy up. Oy. This is on there pretty good. This is one of those things that sometimes happens if you take your oil in for an oil change somewhere. They will over torque your oil pan bolt, which can strip the threads in your oil pan. So these should always be put on by hand and not with a pneumatic tool. Go ahead and finish unscrewing it. And this engine is warm, so trying to not be part of the oil stream. There we go. So once you get the bolt off, you want to go ahead and clean the threads on it. Take a good look at it. You want to look at most of these have some form of gasket, or in this case a mushroom head. Check it out, make sure everything's still good on it. Sometimes what'll happen over the life of a car is that the actual head of the bolt will start to get stripped, so double check that. If it starts to get kind of worn down like this one is, you may want to consider, stopping by the dealership and getting a new one. We're just going to let the oil drain for a bit, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take the an oil filter wrench and remove this. Okay, I have an adjustable oil filter wrench on the end of my socket. I'm just going to get this guy to grab. There we go. I've never seen one of these. They're pretty neat. It allows you to just pretty much grab any oil filter. Oh, we're starting to drip. So go ahead and spin it off. Make sure you've got your oil pan underneath. Give it a second to sort of drain some of the excess there, and then finish removing it. Gooey, gooey, hot, gooey, hot. It always seems like the thread that'll never end. And tip it upside down and allow the oil to drain off. You're also going to get some more out of the engine, so make sure you've got everything properly positioned. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and fit the new one. And what you want to do is take your new oil filter and a little fresh oil And basically what you do dip your finger in the fresh oil, run it around this rubber ring here. This will help it seal correctly. Go ahead and wipe off any excess here. While you're at it, check the threads. Check for goo in the housing. Everything looks good and clean. So basically, fit it up, thread it on. And you want to get it basically hand tight as possible. You don't ever want to use a wrench to tighten an oil filter, only to remove them. So there we go. Now we've changed the oil, or at least removed all the old oil. Last thing I like to do is just kind of wipe up around. This will help you find any oil leaks that you may have when you go back to look again, because you know that you've cleaned it up. So let's go up top and refill it with oil. Okay, so this engine takes 4.5 quarts of oil. Right here we've got a 5-quart bottle. So basically, it's time to just fill her up. Now the opening here is rather tight, so you want to be careful when you're pouring your oil to not do it too quickly, or you might back it up and have it go down on your exhaust manifold, which would smell absolutely wonderful the first time you drive the car. But other than that, this part is pretty much straightforward. The other thing you can consider doing when you're up here is definitely take a look at your air filter and or replace it. The air filter is located down here behind the driver's side headlight, and you basically pop open the area and pull it out. And a good way to test whether or not it's time to change your air filter is tap it on the ground, and if a bunch of junk falls out, you're overdue. The other thing you can do is if you just buy a new one, even if you don't need it today on this oil change, you'll probably need it on the next one. You can always just visually compare the air filters, and that'll give you a good idea. So right now we're just about done pouring oil in. A little bit more. A little bit more. Okay, so what you want to do is before you finish putting it, is not do that. Then you have to crawl back under the car to find it. Alright, let's try that again. So, before you put the car back down on the ground, because one of the things that we did at the very beginning was jack the car up, put it on jack stands so it was secure and would not fall on us and crush us, is double check the oil drain plug, make sure it's tightened up correctly. Double check your oil filter, make sure that's tightened up correctly. Make sure you get that threaded in properly and you've cleaned off the oil fill. If you mess around with your air filter, make sure that's all put back together correctly. But at this stage, you basically changed the oil on a 1996 Buick Riviera with a 3.8 liter motor. So at this stage of the game, just put the car back down on the ground, take a short drive in it, and when you're done, just take one extra look underneath to make sure there's no leaks. Until next time, see ya.